Elton John. One of the greatest performers in music history. But what if I told you there's one band, the only band, that he actually wishes he had joined? A group so iconic, even the Rocket Man himself feels a little sting of regret when he hears their name. Stick around till the end, because we're diving into rare interviews, hidden history, and the one surprising connection that almost made it happen. You'll never guess which band it is, or how close Elton actually came to being a part of them. Elton John wasn't born a legend. In fact, Reginald Kenneth Dwight, the man behind the glasses and glitter, grew up in a quiet suburb in Pinner, England. A shy kid with a talent for piano, his early life gave no indication that he'd one day become a global icon. But that all changed when he teamed up with lyricist Bernie Taupin in the late 1960s. Together, they'd write some of the most beloved songs of the 20th century. By the early 70s, Elton was unstoppable. Your song, Tiny Dancer Rocket Man. He wasn't just making hits, he was changing the sound of pop music. Dressed in wild costumes, belting out anthems behind his piano, Elton was a spectacle, a sensation, and a symbol of unapologetic individuality. But while he was soaring, so was another band across the Atlantic, one that had already made their mark on rock history. Elton admired them deeply. He bought their records, went to their shows, and even covered their songs during his own concerts. There was mutual respect. And behind the scenes, a quiet what-if was brewing. This wasn't just fanboy admiration. Elton and this band had connections. They hung out, partied together, and even played together on stage once or twice. Elton was blown away by their raw sound, their songwriting genius, and their chemistry. He admitted in interviews that he felt a brotherhood with them, like he could easily slot it in, not just as a guest, but as a full-blown member. But Elton had his own empire to build. By 1975, he was selling out stadiums and topping charts all over the world. Still, in quiet moments, he wondered what it would have been like if he'd taken a different road, if he hadn't become Elton John the solo artist, but instead, Elton John the band member. The band in question? It wasn't Queen, though he loved Freddie. It wasn't the Rolling Stones, though he partied with Jagger. It was someone else. Someone unexpected. A group with a reputation for rebellion, for reinventing themselves, and for pushing the boundaries of music, just like Elton did. The clues were there, but no one put it together until years later, when Elton finally revealed the truth. The band Elton John regrets never joining? Led Zeppelin. Yes, you heard that right. The gods of hard rock. The architects of thunderous riffs and mystical lyrics. The band that brought the hammer of the gods down on the music world in the 1970s. And yet, somehow, Elton felt he could have been a part of it. At first glance, it sounds crazy. Elton's flamboyant pop style doesn't exactly scream Zeppelin. But the connection runs deeper than style. It's about respect, influence, and missed opportunities. Elton first crossed paths with members of Led Zeppelin in the early 70s. Both were rising stars in the British music scene, and though their sounds were different, their spirits weren't. They were rebels, rule breakers, artists who didn't fit the mold. What most fans don't know is that Robert Plant, the golden-haired frontman of Zeppelin, once said in an interview that he admired Elton's voice and songwriting. He even joked that Elton could handle keys for Zeppelin if John Paul Jones ever wanted to switch to bass full-time. That wasn't just a compliment, it was an open door. Around 1973, during the height of Zeppelin's power and Elton's stardom, there was a moment when the idea of collaboration wasn't just fantasy. Jimmy Page had been experimenting with more piano-driven tracks. No Quarter was already a haunting blend of rock and classical tones, and Page was eager to expand the band's sound palette. Enter Elton. At a private jam session in London, yes, it actually happened. Elton and Zeppelin played together. According to insiders, the chemistry was electric. Elton's piano didn't just fit, It elevated the sound. He could match Bonham's pounding rhythm with soulful flourishes, duel with Page's guitar in fiery crescendos, and add melodic counterpoints that made the music even richer. But despite that incredible night, it didn't go further. Why? Timing, ego, labels. Everyone had their own path. Elton was about to release Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, his magnum opus. Zeppelin was working on physical graffiti. Both were pulled in different directions. Still, the memory stayed with Elton. In a 2001 interview, he finally said it. "If there's one band I wish I could have been in just for a bit, it's Zeppelin. I loved their power, their presence. I think we could have made something wild together." It wasn't just about music. It was about belonging. Elton always felt a bit like an outsider, too pop for rock, too rock for pop. Zeppelin, for all their machismo, had that same misfit energy. They didn't play by the rules. Neither did Elton. And in another world, they might have joined forces permanently. Even decades later, Elton John's admiration for Led Zeppelin remains unshaken. While he never formally auditioned or was invited to join the band, his statements over the years have made it clear. He truly regrets never being part of that musical hurricane. In the early 2000s, during a BBC interview, Elton was asked what his biggest "what if" was in his career. He smiled, adjusted his glasses and said, "Joining a band like Zeppelin. I often wonder what we could have created. It wouldn't have lasted long, but it would have been magic." That statement caused a stir. Rock fans, journalists, and even former Zeppelin members were surprised, but also intrigued. Elton wasn't delusional. He didn't think he could replace anyone in Led Zeppelin. It was never about ego. It was about synergy. The idea of contributing to something greater than himself. Of stepping into a band that challenged norms just like he did, but from a different angle. Interestingly, the feeling wasn't one-sided. Jimmy Page once said in a retrospective documentary, "Elton's one of the few guys from that era who truly pushed boundaries, musically and theatrically. I think a session or two together would have blown the roof off." And that's the beauty of this story. It's not about what did happen. It's about what could have. In an industry full of missed chances and alternate timelines, this one stands out. Because unlike so many legends who claim they have no regrets, Elton is honest. He admits there's a little ache in his heart when he hears Zeppelin's thunderous riffs and imagines his piano echoing in between. More than a missed collaboration, it was a missed moment in time. A chance for two legends, Elton John and Led Zeppelin, to collide and create a chapter of music history that never was. But maybe that's part of the mystique. And maybe, just maybe, the fantasy is better than the reality ever could have been.